Welcome to Dropped In, Gregory and Gayle. I am so grateful to welcome you into our Dropped In community. Welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having us. We're grateful to be here.
Yes, very much so. So, I am fascinated by, first and foremost, the work that you facilitate and the book that you have written, Sacred Geometry. So, can you share with me the title, meaning of sacred geometry and the universal language of divine alignment?
Absolutely. So I'll just back up for a moment and let you know that we've been doing this work together for close to 40 years. And so we came on to sacred geometry when very few people were talking about it. Our book, Sacred Geometry, the Universal Language of Divine Alignment, and it's a mouthful. What it really means is that within sacred geometry, it helps us understand our universe. It helps us understand how everything is created, constructed, from our bodies to all life around us. We start out as just unformed energy, pure energy. And then when we are moving into this physical dimension, there has to be very specific patterns, rhythms, and cycles and flows that are going to happen over and over again that we can count on, that's the way that everything can work. So even though there are times where we look out at the world and it looks like crazy, chaotic, how could this possibly be? It is actually a very precise, orderly way that everything is working. And our opportunity is to be in resonance with that. When we're in harmony with this energy, with this pattern, with the connections of all that is, then we can thrive. And so that's what we talk about in our book, starting out in the first chapter with a conversation of what is consciousness, because consciousness is everything. And the foundation of consciousness is love. So here we are held in this amazing energy field. And what we can do is open ourselves up to it and not fall into some of the things that block us that are part of our physical lives, our modern lives.
Beautiful. And
And
so,
so,
yep, my
just
apologies.
to, when you ask a question, you're going to get two slightly different answers.
I
And,
love it.
that's the fun of having two of us because we can fill in some of the gaps in understanding. One of the aspects of sacred geometry being a universal language is that it covers the entire universe as far as being able to go to a culture or a civilization somewhere hundreds of millions of light years away and communicate with number, pattern, rhythm, and cycle. It works as a language that way, but also on subtle levels, the levels we can't see that exist on higher dimensional realities. The human being occupies a very small bit of physical reality, much like an iceberg where the majority is hidden. We are used to working only with this little bit that we can bump into 3D reality. And this is the part where this thing called ego, which isn't a bad guy, it's just dealing with our reality in the only way we know how, means that we deal with the physical stuff and we think of things in physical ways where there's limited amounts of physical stuff. Therefore, I have to get my piece, and that's where the ego starts getting into separation and fear. But with sacred geometry being a language where we can start using it on our emotional body that's invisible, our mental body, which is on a higher dimensional level, and universal knowledge, which exists in the ethers through sacred geometry. Human beings can expand to access information on those higher levels. this helps direct the energy of source, the energy of creation, the energy of consciousness, which is love, which is beauty, which we all long for. That aspect can align with the physical through sacred geometric principles. That's where the divine alignment part of the title comes into play, because this is the way what is unseen, what we consider to be divine, comes into physical reality and aligns with this reality to express itself.
Mm, beautiful. So fascinating. So when I hear you both speak, it's as though you have come out of the womb knowing this. How did you discover sacred geometry, and did you find it individually or collectively?
Yeah, well, we got together when I was 35 and he was 38. So we had a lot of experience before that. And so for me, I was really just as an artist, loved looking around, loved trying to understand this universe. And I came across the work of Buckminster Fuller. He's that brilliant man who created the geodesic dome. And his books described how energy came in certain ways that was very geometric with things like tetrahedrons. The tetrahedron is a three-dimensional triangle. But that's the way energy works, where it wants to find very efficient ways of working. When Fuller passed away in the early 80s, I had been opening myself up to things like channeling, meditation. I believe that when someone passes, that consciousness still exists. I asked if I could still learn from him. And I was sitting in meditation. I started to see him come in, and I was getting all these amazing lessons. It got to a point where I said, whoa, this is more than I can handle because I don't have a background in math and science. So either pull it down or send me somebody that I can do something with, because I like to do things with things. And probably within the next week or two, I found Gregory in Boulder, Colorado. We bumped into each other, and he showed me this box of geometries he was creating, he was welding, and they had all these tetrahedrons. I asked him if he knew Bucky Fuller's work. He said, no. I said, well, you need to. And then from there, I was already very attuned to my intuition. I really got a sense that we had work to do together. The universe really brought us together quickly.
Wow, divinely orchestrated to say the least.
And I was even given a card that she had made over a year before we met. It was the only card I carried in my wallet, and I didn't even realize it was her until we'd been going together a week or two. I pulled out my wallet and this business card and went, oh, this is you. So universe had a backup plan. I often need a number of nudges to get to where I need to be going. I had spent the 60s studying math and science. And then in the decade of the 70s, I started exploring higher knowledge. I started receiving knowledge, it was called, or different meditations from different gurus. I started working with building a pyramid with a friend that in today's dollars, it would probably be close to $250,000, even though it was only 10 feet high. We had so much going on in it that it was moving a great deal of energy, and we were taking turns sleeping in it, and it set off my kundalini, which is energy moving up from the earth, reaching back into higher self, reaching back into source energy and clearing the chakras, the impediments in the body to make room for this higher vibration. The process was not comfortable and it was not pleasant. It was like fire being in my system, burning, and it even burned holes in both hands and my feet from just the energy moving through my body, trying to clear and raise my consciousness. But after I started balancing that energy, I started seeing geometries. And that's what I started building, not understanding anything about sacred geometry. I only knew that energy had patterns to it before it became physical. And that's what I was doing, building the patterns that I was seeing. And then my communication started increasing with non-physical beings. So I started asking them what to build. And that's when Gail and I met and realized we had work to do together.
Wow. Oh my goodness, I'm flooded with shivers. How beautiful. Do you practice Kundalini yoga at all, or is it more so the Kundalini energy, the awakening that you experience?
I never practiced Kundalini. I didn't know anything about it. Most of the people working on me, the healers, didn't know what was going on for a year or two until I heard it inside as I was walking to someone who was going to work on me. I heard, "This is Kundalini." And I
Mm.
mentioned that to him, and he said, "Yes, that's what's
Mm.
going on."
So, in regards to your book, how was it for you to write it together? I'm currently writing my book, and it's a journey of its own. So I can imagine the journey in collaboration together. How was that experience for you?
It was interesting. We talked about writing a book for quite a number of years, but to actually do it and be able to follow through and work with each other was a commitment. We had to really get a good structure. We had a publisher that was very helpful in helping us get clear about what the book was and organizing it and all of that. Once we had some of those organizational, structural kinds of things in gear, I think that made it a lot easier. It was a way that we could see, well, this is what it is, and this is what I can do, and this is what you can do. And so we flowed back and forth. It takes a lot longer than you think, and that's okay. It's the kind of thing where coming to terms with it takes the time that it needs to take.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was amazing how we work together. We've been doing this work for so many years and talking on programs. We have that ability to keep the flow going.
Mm.
Gregory can get very technical, mathematical, and science focused. What I like to bring to it is let's make it more palatable. Let's make this something that somebody without that kind of background can accept, can take it and it means something. We found our ways of doing that. There was one point where I tend to be able to move pretty quickly with writing. And Gregory's not that way.
Wasn't.
He wasn't that way. Well, you're still not, but it's
Great
not
Well, I'm
quite.
reframe.
better.
Yeah, but he's
I'm
a
better.
lot
I'm
better.
still here and I'm
A
better.
lot better. I sat him down, and there was one day where he had been at his computer and he had been working for hours. I said to him, "Oh, great. Send it over to me so I can do some editing." And he said, "Well, there's really not that much there." And I said, "Really? How much is there?" And it was only a few paragraphs. And I went, "Oh, I don't think we're going to get this book done this way." So tuning in was really about how do you clear the field? There's something there that's not allowing that flow to really come through. So we did some work together, and he was able to access some earlier childhood experiences that were part of his reticence to just make it happen. After that, everything flowed so much better. I was so happy. It was like, yes, this is going to happen.
That is so cool. So powerful. So when you say clear the field, I understand what you're saying, but for those listening that may not understand, how specifically were you able to clear the field?
Bringing awareness to issues is a first step and an important step. And so that's where we started, bringing awareness of where I had issues around certain things in school, being understood, writing, just all the different issues. And I think that was a lot of it, being aware, shining a light on it, and then forgiving myself, feeling good about where I was in relationship to what was. And there's something really miraculous in spending just an hour or so of time together, rediscovering different things in the past. I mean, there have been some other things that have happened since the release of the book, where even though I'm in my latter 70s, there's so many things to keep learning about me and about growing and being open to it. And when something's not working, a lot of the process is just bringing awareness, bringing light, bringing clarity to the issue, and speaking through some of the things that start popping up to do better. It's on my side. And so it will bring things into my awareness that may seem trivial, but when you pay attention, that's what needs to be heard, seen, and felt. All the senses need to get involved in what was, what is, and what can be. And then working with the tools that we work with, it moves energy so rapidly that often that's the healing process. It's not some grandiose, special kind of technique. It's coming to a place of beingness and then applying that and understanding that universe is here to support all of us in being the best we can possibly be.
Isn't that the truth?
Mm.
It's hard to believe that you're in your latter 70s.
That's good. My body doesn't feel that way sometimes, but okay.
So I'm curious, what does it mean to live in a vibrational universe?
That's a great question. That's what we're in. We're so focused on our physical, and our physical experience is just such a minor part of it all. Even if you just look at things on a level of cells and atoms, we're mostly space, right? And the space is energy. And what is that energy? What that energy really is consciousness. And if we allow ourselves to experience, it's love, not necessarily the kind of love that we feel in our lives and our relationships, but it's the creative energy, the creative force of all that is, that brings us together, that allows all this to come together. So, that's really, I think, what's important as we look at we are multidimensional beings. We exist on many different levels. And our intuition is a great vehicle for us to experience all kinds of things that we can't tell with our senses, like our eyes and our ears and our smell. Intuition and our sense of knowing lets us know that there's so much more that we are and that we always have been and that we will be. This experience is just a small part of it. For some, that might seem a little freaky, but really what it is, I find, is it's beautiful because it means that the way that our brains are set up, we can only experience things in the linear way, with time being linear. And yet there's so much happening because energy spirals. We talk about toroidal flows, how the energy moves in and out. The more we can experience the massiveness of it without being overwhelmed, we keep giving ourselves permission to reach for more of who we are. And something that I love about sacred geometry, going back into like ancient times, The masters of ancient civilizations created temples and structures and all kinds of sacred places using the principles of sacred geometry because it enabled them to bring people into physical places where they could transcend into higher realms. And that's an important thing that in modern society, we don't pay enough attention to unless we're meditating and doing other things that help us get there. And yet, sacred geometry is primed to do that. So when we actually got together and Gregory had this box of geometries, one of the things that I did was I put my hand over some of these geometries that he had, and I went, whoa, I can feel this. There's energy coming off of this. What is this? And so, being a curious person, the next thing that I look at is, well, what can I do with it? And so we started experimenting and realizing that these were keys to accelerate the evolution of our consciousness, to help free us to go beyond just this physical expression. And that's what is so amazing. All these years before we wrote this book, we've been creating different kinds of geometric that are designed to support people. We need to be connected. Human beings, we really are all one, but then we go into this isolation thinking that we're not. The ability to connect and expand into what's here is a critical piece for human beings and for all life. And sacred geometry and the tools that we've been working with all these years are ways of us being able to anchor in those energies and work with them in a way that helps us become more creative, more knowing, expand our intuition, help us with relationships, with the things that we want to do in our lives, because that's all a part of who we are. So sacred geometry has been a key in our lives for being able to evolve in our lifetime.
And this is what it means to be in a vibrational universe. You can create tools that vibrate at certain archetypical frequencies. And that means just the way the universe was created, so that you can have that energy experience in your life. And there's no limit when you think of the universe vibrationally. It's possible to move faster than the speed of light and be connected and experience that connection with everything, because it is all vibration. And it's just a matter of allowing and attuning your body to the potential to be on these other levels of existence where it's all intermixing. It's all springing from consciousness. It's not that light itself, which actually does have a geometry, it's that little particle of that photon actually what's moving, or perception that's moving. Vibrationally, it's interesting. When we look at something in our book, we talked about this little thrush. It lives in New England and it spends the spring and summer raising a family, building a nest. Scientists studying the thrush wondered why they sometimes left early before they were done raising their family. He figured, what could it be? Was it food? Was it competition? It turns out that the thrush winters in South America and it needs to fly over the Gulf of Mexico. If there was going to be a hurricane happening during that time, the very thrush would leave earlier to avoid the hurricane. And it could actually predict hurricanes better than NASA, better than all of our electronic equipment. The very thrush still comes up on top in predicting hurricanes.
Wow.
And you think, how could a little bird brain, which we use as a detractor, I mean, we call someone that when we want to be negative, but this little bird is tapping into something greater in the vibrational universe, which is beyond time, beyond the speed of light, beyond all of this, but vibrationally, everything in creation is served by creation when it is in need and when it is open. And that's potentially what a human being can do. And yet we have limited ourselves at the tip of this iceberg, not being able to tap into that source, that level of information. And in essence, the pieces that we've built, the tools that we build, because we're dedicated to the service of raising consciousness in human beings, the planet, animals, plants, so that we are supported in bringing through the information that serves everyone in that way.
Beautiful. What a sacred contract the both of you have.
Mhm.
How might one utilize, if they're wanting to foster their spiritual growth, how might one utilize sacred geometry to do so?
That's a great question. Well, I think let's start out with something really simple. Taking a walk out in a beautiful place in nature is a wonderful opportunity to experience sacred geometry and feel what it feels like, feel the beauty of life around us, feel the air, open our hearts and feel the gratitude, listen to the birds, listen to the sound of the water flowing. All of those things take us home, really. They take us back to who we really are. They center us. And so that's a beginning place where we, many people spend a lot of time outside of nature. I think we're all doing that, spending a lot of time on our computers and our phones and all kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
It's important. I think it's critical to evolve consciousness, to give ourselves the time, be here, and open ourselves up to the magnificence of what this experience of life really is. To breathe it in, to listen to our higher self, to listen to that voice inside. So all of that is a beginning step. And then what we've done is we've created these different tools that are like the pendant that I'm wearing and that you might have noticed Gregory was wearing. These are all based on sacred geometric principles, and the designs are, you can see them on the surface of the pendant. It's a two-sided pendant, and we work with an earth face and a star face that helps move the energy up, with the star face towards your body and with the earth face towards your body, moving the energy back down again so that it's more available for grounding. And these are tools about connection because we're distracted thinking that life is what we're doing in our jobs or how we're taking care of our families and very practical things that we need to do. And yet it's important to spend time with the higher realms, which is why you do the work you do as a Kundalini yoga teacher. So we have time to really experience who we are and what we're capable of. So these tools like the pendant, one of the reasons that I loved it and wanted to create something was so people could be wearing something all the time that would support these higher connections. And when that happens, life changes. We're knowing who we really are, and we're allowing ourselves to evolve at a higher level. We have other tools for healing that are wonderful, and other geometries that affect our environment. they essentially restructure the environment so it can resonate with these natural energies. That is part of how geometry really affects us.
What a gift.
The pendant, for example, shifts the frequency of the energy coming into your body. When you raise that frequency, it's like expanding to the bigger part of the iceberg that you haven't been able to access before. So you can watch yourself. You can experience shifts in your environment because of your increased frequency. One grandmother told me that her grandkids used to run away from her when she visited. Now they crawl all over her.
Oh.
A prison guard told me that prisoners treat him much differently.
Mm.
Some of these tools that are put into a office, say for a lawyer, he said that people don't argue as much anymore when they have these running because their frequency changes. They can operate from a place where they can tune in more easily to that information. It should happen for us as well. We just limit ourselves in our perception of how the universe works and wanting to support us with the information we need to be in the right place at the right time. You know, this whole sense of serendipity that is so much fun when we experience it because it's like, oh, I'm part of the whole. When you get there and the right person shows up, or you think of someone and then they call, and all those things where you feel the weaves coming together and that you're part of the fabric and you know, oh, I am really taken care of by the universe. And it's so much fun when you watch that happen more and more when you shift your frequency and are just in a place where you start feeling good, where you don't feel put upon by any negative energies on the outside, where you feel empowered and creative. And that's what helped me write the book too. We have the star face and the earth face, which is very grounding and very focused. I started using that and I could stay more focused and write and do a lot more than I could when I was just ignoring the two sides of the pendant and just trying to work with it on the grounding side.
Very cool. Sign me up. I need one of those.
It really makes a difference, even with things like relationships.
Mhm.
Being able to be more present in a relationship rather than going off on automatic pilot, which
Mhm.
so many of us do. One of the things that happened for me the first time I put the pendant on, I used to be a really good procrastinator. And all of a sudden I realized I was not procrastinating anymore. I stopped that completely because something to me where I felt like my purpose was more front and center than it had ever been. And we're finding people who fundamental things like in their work, they're able to get more done, work together better. There was this woman who was a real estate agent and she was working on this real estate deal for a couple of years that just wasn't coming together. Got the pendant, wore it, and within about 2 weeks, everything came together. And people with relationships have been telling us that they recognize the person who is really important for them to be with. So its universe is very interesting, and we're designed to connect. When we don't get in the way, but instead do things that help facilitate that natural process, then things work for us. And I think we all want more of that these days. There's been enough struggle.
Mm.
And what really is being offered to us is let go of that and
Yeah.
open up to more of who you really are. And I think that's a beautiful thing to happen.
Certainly is. Fascinating work. So I'm curious, from what I'm hearing, it helps with emotional well-being, helping with relationships. How about bringing forth more abundance, more prosperity? How does it work with that energy?
It certainly does. And bottom line, it's like none of this is magic. This is working with yourself, working with aspects of your being that need to be uncovered. You start at a higher vibration, which is when you look at all the different teachers that talk about manifestation, they always talk about you have to raise your vibration. So you're there in this higher frequency where you're feeling good, where you can clearly understand what you want to create, work on the issues that are in your way. It's something we've watched happen where, in the past, we just find focus, putting some meditation on what's needed, and then it starts happening. It's like the issue with me not being able to write. Yes, it was a fast process, but I think we were working from a place where it can shift more rapidly because we weren't in this downward spiral. We weren't catering to the negative thoughts that want to come up, that say, why don't I have this money? I need this now. Hey, universe, I've talked to you about this before. How come it's not showing up? All those aspects where we forget, why are we in this play to begin with? It's not to just do all these things outside of us, but to be connected inside, to be connected to the love that we are. It's to be able to grow and share that love and share that understanding with others. We sometimes get caught up in side trips thinking this is the most important thing. Until I have my significant other, I'm not going to be fulfilled. Maybe it's something where you need to learn how to be fulfilled within yourself and feel that love and recognize that you are totally whole the way you are. And when you feel that vibration, then the significant other shows up because they're attracted to who you are, to what you have become. So we have to be so careful in saying, okay, I need some more money in the bank next Thursday. This is a constant process of growing, of falling in love with yourself and becoming the best possible reflection of who you can be.
You are speaking my language.
It's the language of who we are. That's really
Really.
what this is taking us back to knowing who we are. Our education has taken us away from that. Our education is very good for helping form us into doing our jobs and being moms and dads, all of the things that in our culture, in our society, call us to be. And yet there's a whole nother realm of who we are.
Mm.
And that's where we feel very fulfilled. That's really what our work has been about, helping us bridge those and find the ways to bring it together so that we can still do our jobs. We can do all the day-to-day kinds of things and yet still feel the gratitude, the joy, and the creativity to expand our lives. It's a both and kind of world, not an either or. I think a lot of
Yes.
people in their spiritual journey have looked at having to abandon their physical lives or the way that life worked for them. Then they find that they have money issues or the relationships aren't working or whatever. And so this is what we talk about, evolving yourself so that you can have all of that. You don't have to
Mhm.
go off into a cave and meditate for years to become a highly conscious person. There are many different ways of doing that. And we want to
Mhm.
be able to support that so that people can really bring it in to their everyday life.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that. It's so important to be in that energy of both and because it's such a higher vibration to reside in. Being a part of the spiritual community, there can be that stigma where it's this or that, as you shared. Yet that prosperity, there's that guilt of attaining this abundant lifestyle. So I love that you were speaking into this, the both and, because that's the energy that I thrive in. And I invite others to live in that space as well. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's so important. When we
Mm-hmm.
look out at our world, it tells us all about abundance and it
Mm-hmm.
invites us to enjoy it. And
Mm-hmm.
so the more we are conscious of it, the more joy we can get from it.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your lights and your passion and all of this greatness that came through today. How may they connect with you and learn more about the work that you facilitate and, of course, purchase your book? I'll put all the links in the show notes.
As far as our book, one of the things that we'd like to invite people to do is go to our website, get the first chapter on what is consciousness for free. And the way to do that is to go to iconnecttoall.com/chapter. And for those of you who can't see what we're flashing up on the screen here, which hopefully we'll get there, it's the letter I, the word connect, the number 2, the, the word all, all.com/chapter. So if you go there, you can get the first chapter of the book. And if you're enjoying that, then go ahead and buy the book. It's on our website, and we have signed copies that we'll send to you. The website, iconnecttoall.com, has all the work that we've been doing over the years. If you go under the tab Shop, there's a drop down. You can learn about the pendants, the different sacred geometry forms that we've been creating, the healing tools, all kinds of things that we have. And there's also YouTube videos. We've done a lot with sharing information. We'd love to invite people to share more with us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. It's just such an
Thank you.
honor to meet both of you. And thank you so much for raising the vibration of the planet and humanity and all sentient beings.
Ah, thank you.
Wishing you both a beautiful rest of your day. And I look forward to reading your book.
Wonderful.